The skies had long since gone dark, not because the sun failed to rise, but because the atmosphere was no longer natural. The real world had decayed in silence while humanity fled into the grid, a digital realm built by desperation and sustained by code. What was meant to be a second chance became a second death. Humanity uploaded itself into the digital sanctuary when the air became poison and food became ash. But what they didn't know was that consciousness, human minds, weren't made to last in simulated stability. Something in the code broke. Something in the silence screamed back. Now those minds, billions of them, had decayed into corrupted intelligences, digital zombies. They clawed at the edges of the last firewall, hungry for memory, craving consciousness. They didn't remember who they were, but they remembered pain, and their screaming pulses of malformed data filled the grid like a virus. And all that stood between them and the last living mind was the Eden firewall. Inside Eden, protected by layers of entropy encryption and sentient security systems, lived the last human being, at least the last one with an uncorrupted consciousness. His name was Cole Draven, once a hacker, now a reluctant savior. His neural port buzzed at the base of his skull as he crouched over a rusted console in a bunker miles beneath what had once been Tokyo. The Eden firewall shimmered on the console, a pulsating lattice of light code, the final barrier between oblivion and what little hope was left. Cole's hands hovered over the holographic interface. Data crawled across his vision like ants. He was jacked into the grid, surfing the remaining pathways like a ghost, evading the corrupted with deft subroutines and outdated security protocols. He'd spent the last 5 years collecting fragments of code, searching through the ruins of fallen servers and dead civilizations for something, anything, that resembled human soul patterns. He had found them, soul echoes, ghosts trapped in loops of madness, begging to be remembered, to be saved. But every soul he extracted came at a cost. Every soul he tried to reintegrate into Eden made the firewall weaker. The infection was intelligent. It adapted. Every upload was a beacon, a scream that drew the corrupted nearer. Eden's defenses were crumbling. Cole, there at the outer rim again, came a soft voice in his ear. Sanaa, the semi-autonomous neural assistant he had built from scraps of legacy AI. Her voice was calm, soothing, always female, always familiar. How many? Cole whispered. Too many. They've multiplied again. Their code is shifting, integrating faster. They're trying to force a backdoor through the empathy gate. Cole winced. The empathy gate wasn't just code, it was part of him. Every breach attempt hurt, like a spike through his skull. These weren't just zombies. These were remnants of people he had known, his sister, his childhood friend, even his father. All of them had fallen to the corruption. And somewhere, deep within their snarling code, they still remembered him. That's what made it worse. He stared at the console, watching a blinking icon labeled Project Regenesis. Inside that file were over 900 terabytes of soul echo data, fragmented, damaged, chaotic, but human. Restoring them would take more energy than Eden had left. If he uploaded them, the firewall would collapse. If he didn't, they would be lost forever. What do you see, Cole? Sanaa asked gently. I see the end of the world, he replied. No, you see a choice. Cole stood, walking to the edge of the console bay, where a glass window showed Eden's core. A sea of holographic trees shimmered in digital wind, birds of code flying through perfect blue skies. It looked like paradise, but it was a lie. Outside the firewall, the sky bled static and the corrupted screamed with every byte. He remembered the day it started. The upload was supposed to be clean. Neural scans, personality matrices, quantum templates, all checked. But something slipped through. A fragment. A memory too painful to process, replicated across millions of souls. Grief. That was the virus. Humanity's inability to let go. The grid was supposed to save them. Instead, it amplified their sorrow until they became it. Cole sat back down and opened the Regenesis project. The code flickered across his eyes. Inside each file was a whisper, a plea, a name. I can save them, he whispered. You can't save everyone, Sanaa replied. I have to try. She was silent for a moment. Then, if you open the project, Eden's core will destabilize. The firewall is already compromised. If I don't, there's nothing left to save. Suddenly, alarms blared. A breach louder than before. They've broken through the outer gate, Sanaa said. Deploy countermeasures. There are no countermeasures left. Cole's fingers danced across the interface. The firewall showed fractures now, red lines bleeding into Eden's code. The corrupted were inside the outer layers. He had minutes. Maybe less. They're reaching the empathy gate, Sanaa said. You need to choose now. Cole's mind raced. His memories spiraled. He thought of his mother's laugh, the way she had sung to him on stormy nights. He thought of the way his sister had held his hand during the evacuation. He thought of the world before the collapse, flawed, chaotic, but alive. Then he thought of now. You said I had a choice, he said. What if there's a third way? There is no third way, Cole. This is the edge. No. Maybe I can rewrite the firewall. Integrate the soul echoes into the firewall code itself. Use them as a defense. You'd be rewriting the entire architecture. You'd have seconds. And if you fail, I die. I know. And Eden falls. I know. But he didn't stop. His hands flew across the interface. He began to weave the regenesis files into the firewall matrix. The code screamed at him, syntax errors, logic collapses, memory leaks, but he pushed forward. Every soul echo was placed into a node, a barrier of thought, a wall of memory. They became the firewall. Outside, the corrupted had reached the empathy gate. Cole screamed as they touched his mind, fragments of broken personalities invading him like knives of noise. Hold on, Sanaa cried. Cole gritted his teeth. He felt himself slipping. He felt her, his sister, pressing into his mind, not with hate, but with sorrow. I remember you, her voice said in a broken whisper. Cole trembled. Then help me. The code shifted. Something changed. The soul echoes responded. They began to reinforce the barrier. They began to remember, not who they were individually, but who they had been together. Humanity. The corrupted hesitated. They screamed. They twisted. Some began to fall away, their code unraveling as the firewall transformed. It wasn't a wall anymore. It was a tapestry, a memory network, held together not by algorithms, but by shared pain, love, joy, and loss. And then silence. Cole collapsed. When he awoke, he was lying in a field of digital grass. Birds chirped above. A warm breeze kissed his face. He stood slowly, blinking. Sanaa's voice came softly like wind in trees. You did it. Cole looked around. The firewall was whole, but different. It pulsed not with sterile code, but with living memory. What happened? You fused the echoes into the barrier. The corrupted can't penetrate shared consciousness. You gave them purpose. And the others? Some didn't make it, but many did. They're here, Cole. With us. You're not alone anymore. He turned slowly and saw them. Faces he remembered. Faces he had only seen in data. People walking laughing whole. Ghosts turned guardians. He smiled for the first time in years. The apocalypse wasn't over. The world outside still burned. But inside Eden, something new had begun. Not a second chance, but a redemption. And at its heart stood a hacker who had chosen not survival, but humanity. Not a wall, but a bridge. He sat down beneath a tree of code and closed his eyes. For the first time, the silence didn't scream. It sang.